What the ding dong doodle is up, dudes? And lady dudes. Always lady dudes, of course. Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today, I'm talking about a very, very specific card in FORMUD Skipper. It's actually, it's not that new now. What structure deck did it come in? SDS structure deck, soulburner. There you go. It came in the Salaman Grade structure deck, now that we know. And it's a really, really interesting card. It kind of got glossed over by a lot of people because it doesn't really apply that strongly yet. But it may at some point, and it could be an insanely powerful card at some point. So let's get into it. Let's talk about why this card is so interesting. So we'll start with its effects before we get into anything. It is a level 1 light Cybers effect monster. He looks like a little mechanical guppy. He's cool. He's cute. 0 attack, 0 defense. Stats aren't really relevant, but his effect is what's really, really interesting. During your main phase, you can reveal 1 link monster in your extra deck. And if you do, when you link summon this turn, you can treat this card as link material with the same name, type, and attribute as the revealed monster. And if this card is sent to the graveyard as that's the first effect. The second effect, if this card is sent to the graveyard as link material, you can add 1 level 5 or higher Cybers monster from your deck to your hand. Pretty generic search, any level 5 or higher. We'll get into that in a little bit. But so pretty much what this card is interesting for is any deck that takes a semi-specific Link 1 monster, this card can be abused as essentially just another card in the archetype because you normal it. You change his name to that same Link monster, and then you link into that Link monster, and you get its effects. If that Link 1 is strong enough, this card becomes strong as well, just being able to give you that one as your normal summon, just extra consistency, playing him plus a search as well. Now, I will say, one of the biggest things for this card is that it would be way better should it actually have a better search target at the moment. Because at the moment, we don't really have any good search targets in other decks. In like a pure Cybers deck, sure, this search is fine. You can search for D-Grade Buster. He's the big guy. He's like 25-25. He needs to banish 2 Cybers monsters from grave, and then when he's on field, he has like a quick effect where he can banish any like high-level monster your opponent controls until the end of the turn. Not crazy, but it's a nice, just big body you can put on the board pretty easy. Problem is you have to get 2 Cybers monsters in grave, and in random decks, you're not going to be able to do that with FORMUD Skipper. People look at, what's that one card's name? I can't remember his name right now. He's like the level 5 Cybers, but you have to control no monsters, and then you can special summon him from your hand. You can discard cards from your hand to pop that many spell and traps on the field. It's a solid card, but again, you have to have no monsters on your field, and you're going to be linking this away into a monster, in which case you could search him, but you'd already have a monster on field, so you can't even get him out. And then other than that, there's just nothing like Sim Tablier is interesting, but it would need for FORMUD Skipper to be exactly a level 4 monster. And there's just like a couple cards that are like close to working, but not quite. So keep this in mind as I'm talking about this under the context that they would need to get, FORMUD Skipper would need a pair, or not a pair, but like 1 good level 5 or higher Cybers monster that would just be generically good, maybe just special summons itself. It's a big body, but it doesn't do anything else. That would be fine. To really take advantage of that extra card you get. But for right now, we don't have that, so keep that in mind. That's what I'm saying here, is we're talking about the future for FORMUD Skipper. So let's go into some archetypes that I think this deck could, this card could be decent in. One is Traptrix. I don't think he'd actually be that great in Traptrix, especially because a lot of their cards, their best cards, end up locking the archetype into Earth machines for the rest of the turn. So like you search that Cybers monster, you can't even use it. But this is, they do have a link 1. It takes any non-link Traptrix, so he works. He could just copy its name. He's not a link, but he has the name, and he can link into this. And then if this card's sent to the graveyard, you can attach it to another XZ as a material. It's just like another normal summon as an Traptrix. Not a big problem I think they have, but I just want to throw it out there. Then we have Golvig, the Nordic Ascendant. This is actually one of the better ones, I think, just because he literally just straight up gets you to Golvig, and Golvig just like does everything. You just banish 3 cards from your hand, and then you just special 3 monsters, and then you make one of your big Nordic gods, and then there you go. That's your whole play. I mean, that's what all that Nordics really do. He is essentially just a 1. As long as you have the 3 cards in hand, he's a 1 card normal summon that gets you into this situation. So he is more like consistency in that regard. Another one is Magical Musketeers. This is a newer deck that's on the come up just because of Max just being released, but and he's only good going second. I think that's important to note. But he needs a level 8 or lower monster, so FORMUD Skipper fits that, right? He would copy his name in the extra deck, and he would become a Magical Musketeer Max, but he's level 1, so he still works. And you could just do it. Unfortunately, he doesn't really do anything going first, and this is primarily a going first deck, so maybe a side deck option. That's realistically the only way I really see him being played. But if that search could get you to something interesting, I definitely could see him being maybe played, just because you'd link him off and search for something spicy, drop another big monster on the field, and now we're cooking. But until then, I just think it's an afterthought, but something to keep in mind that he could possibly work in this deck. Next up is one of the ones I thought I was actually looking at. I do play Traptrix. I do play Magical Musketeers too, but Traptrix specifically I was looking at because the monsters specifically in Traptrix are like super underwhelming. So I had just been kind of sitting around and I was like, you know what? Is there something better I can play to have more names in my deck, but still like get to Sarah? And FORMUD Skipper works. You can just normal him and link him into Sarah, but same thing as before without a monster to really search that does anything. If you could put a body on board, one big body on board would be so clean, because you're essentially, for one card, you're getting Sarah and a big body. It's a pretty good deal, and then you just set all the traps in your hand, and you just wait and see, because Sarah's going to get you all that advantage you really need in the deck, like that. So I think he's very close to possibly being a very good Traptrix card, but until we get like a good generic level 5 or higher, he can't really work in this deck either. Next, we have the more meta-relevant stuff, like the higher-end meta-relevant stuff. First up is Crusadias. I know in like the Crusadia Thunder Guard Dragon build, like 2 Crusadias like gets you like full combo and a half or whatever. It's like if you go uncontested, you're gonna pop off so hard. You could just normal him. If you have, as long as you have the Link 2 in your extra deck, you could just copy the Link 2's name, because Magius cannot take another Magius, so you would just use Regulus, I think is his name, and then link into Magius, and then as long as you had a second or another Crusader, just one Crusader in FORMUD Skipper works. It just, I guess, raises the number, but I guess you're not even really trying to play too many, so it's like meh. But it does give you the possibility of that. It's just something I want to throw out there. And also Crusadia as a rogue deck, sometimes you play like your 15 Crusadia monsters, and if you don't see 2 Crusadia monsters in your hand, you kind of just like don't play. So I guess if you did struggle with consistency or just hate it when you don't see 2 Crusadias, you could just play 3 FORMUD Skipper as well, and essentially you're looking at 18 Crusadias, or 18 cards you just need a combination of 2 of, and your chances are even more robust than before. So just interesting to throw it out there. Next up is Sky Strikers. This one is pretty interesting, because I think this one could be one of the more realistic ones, being because Sky Strikers, we're already expecting a ban list to come very soon, and people expect Sky Strikers to be hit, whether it's Eagle Booster, Engage, Widow Anchor, or multi-roll. People are expecting one or multiple of those cards to be hit in some way, shape, or form. If Engage does get hit, you're losing ways to get to Ray, or just open Ray in general. And even if you don't open Engage or multi-roll, sometimes as long as you still have a Ray, it's going to be slow, but at least you can get to your pieces. Whether it's, go Hayate, dump something. Go Shizuku, add something. Go Kagari to add something back, right? You still can get somewhere with your monsters. FORMUD Skipper could just be your extra copies of Ray, essentially. You just normal summon it. You copy whichever Sky Striker monster you're not about to link into, because you can't use one with the same attribute. So if you wanted to make Kagari, you'd copy Hayate so that it'd be wind, and then you'd link into Kagari, like that. So I actually do think that's actually really interesting, especially depending on the hits. I don't think right now it's really necessary. Clearly the deck's good enough right now as it is, but if the deck loses some engages or some multi-rolls, and they need to connect to those monsters as consistently as possible, I could see a spicy tech in. And maybe you don't play 3, but like 1 or 2, just to like have those extra 2 copies of cards that could connect you into your monster lineup. That could be a legitimate thing. So definitely keep that in the back of your mind. And the last one here for the ones we have currently in the TCG is Nightmare Mermaid. Now, Mermaid just takes any Nightmare monster except for itself. So you could literally normal summon Skipper, copy a Phoenix, Link Phoenix into Mermaid, it's a 1-card nightmare combo, at least going into, if you're, for Orcus specifically, if we're talking. And then you just go off from there, discard and combo into the moon, right? So that's like another pretty consistent thing that I don't think really many people looked at. People were looking at like, oh, like how do I get 2 monsters on the board? Like, why are you worried about getting 2 monsters on the board? FORMUD Skipper does it himself. He goes right into Mermaid. You're skipping the middleman, although I don't think that really takes out. I still think like negations are still a problem, but I do think it's an overlooked card and definitely could just be one of those normal summons you play in your deck that just gets you Mermaid. And it searches you a level 5 Cybers or higher. I don't think any specifically pertain to Orcus right now, but whatever, something to keep in mind. And then we move into some OCG stuff. So this is some stuff we should be getting relatively near in the future, but I did want to throw it in here. Tenis are an archetype coming up, and they do have a Link 1. He just takes any non-Link Teni monster, I believe, so FORMUD Skipper can just hard go into him. It's not great. 100% it's not great. But it is just extra copies of Teni monsters, kind of like Crusaders. Tenis are only going to have like their 5 monsters at first, and then they get a 6th one later. It could just be one of those decks where you just want extra copies of cards that you can play, like extra normal summons, because you just don't even play enough normal summons. I think they all can special from hand, but you want maybe just a couple extra. So maybe FORMUD Skipper is playable as filler for consistency in that way. So keep that in mind. Then we have the Rocket Link one that we're going to be getting in the Rocket Revolt structure deck. This guy takes, I think, any dragon. Does he take a rocket specifically, or does he take a dragon? Either way, it's fine because you can copy himself. He takes I think he takes a level 4 lower rocket or a dragon. I can't. Either depending on which. I mean, either way, FORMUD Skipper still works. You go right into him on summon. He will search you, your field spell, boot, sector, launch, and then you can also destroy himself. Doesn't he destroy himself to add another card? Add a card from your graveyard back to your hand, depending on, I don't remember exactly what he does, but he's a very nice piece in that deck, and FORMUD Skipper again just becomes another normal summon. Extra consistency, another normal summon that just gets you into your Link 1. It does take your normal summon, and I know Rockets semi-rely on the normal summon a little bit, but it's just something to keep in mind. He is an option. That's all this is. We're just speculating options for this card, right? And then the last one here is Marincess. So we have 2 Marincess Link 1s that the deck is going to be getting. We have Sea Angel, I believe is her name, and then we have Blue Slug here. Blue Slug is coming in Rising Rampage, where Sea Angel is coming in Chaos Impact. So we won't see her for a couple months, but Blue Slug we'll see in a couple weeks. So she's pretty interesting because, like I said, I believe she takes any level 4 lower Marincess monster. And I know one of the biggest problems with the deck, actually, especially upon release, will be that we're really only getting 2 monsters, one of which is terrible. So essentially all we're getting is 1 monster. And even with like Signet Mining in the deck, you only have like 6 copies of like a normal summon that gets you going in any capacity, right? At least FORMUD Skipper gets to her, and I don't know, even if you open FORMUD Skipper and the other good monster, you can do some pretty good combos because she special summons from hand. So, nothing crazy, and then she doesn't even like combo specifically with FORMUD Skipper because I think she adds a Marincess back to your hand specifically. So she doesn't even add the FORMUD Skipper back, but it's just something to keep in mind. Again, options. When Sea Angel comes out, she will add a Marincess spell from deck to hand on summon, I believe. So that's just a straight up +1. But I believe on release we're only going to have the field spell, which is like super okay. So, like, I don't know, that's like the only spell. We'd have to see future support there. But again, it's just stuff to keep in mind. There's not a ton of archetypes that Konami felt comfortable enough giving powerful Link 1. So we had to look at the options we had, and this is what I came up with as far as possible decks that FORMUD Skipper could be used and abused and shined in, right? So, again, just keep in mind, we really need a strong level 5 or higher Cybers monster that he could search, as just a free card you get that actually does something. But other than that, he's just a nice consistency card and a card that allows certain decks to just do what they do, but in a way that you probably didn't think was possible. So I'm going to leave it up there, guys. Let me know if you think I missed anything, any deck specifically that FORMUD Skipper, can shine in. And, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. If you want, subscribe. You know, it helps me out, makes me feel good, whatever, all that stuff. Thanks, guys, for watching. Peace.